Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 118 of So What's Been Happening on a Monday, the 13th of November. 13th, lucky number for some, unlucky for others, but it's a night all about Matt Malone and the Holy Spirits. So I look forward to this chat shortly with Matt, and thanks to Chris Familton, for hooking up this chat again. He's been very generous with his suite of artists that he represents from a publicity point of view. So he's been very gracious in passing on his whole book almost to us to have a chat to. So thanks again to Chris. All right, a couple of gigs just to have a chat about in the next couple of days, just to whet your appetite a little bit. Make sure you get across to Drunken Poet tomorrow night with a good friend of the show, Joyce Pressure, Wine, Whiskey and Women, they're calling it. So an hour with Joyce Pressure is a special one, super folky style there, and then off to George Lane, possibly Thursday night. This is a release of a new mural, an opening, which has been inspired by G Flip's first single, being a local St Kilda girl. So make sure you get down to George Lane. Delsinki and Brooke Taylor are going to open this. So this is a pretty special one. It's quite early. I think it's about a 5:30 start, 6 o'clock. So it'll be right just as the work traffic kind of kicks off. And then Friday, 2 gigs for Friday, 2 choices. You got off to Brunswick Ballroom for Ash Naylor. This is a great release. He's got his second instrumental album played called Spaceship. This will be a cracker. Anyone that's familiar with Ash Naylor in his multitude of bands, including The Church even, and a few others. So Paul Kelly, he's been plenty rock whiz man, so there's plenty Ash Naylor is around for. So another one, if Ash isn't for you on that side of town, you can head back to George Lane for Luke Sinclair's set, another show favourite, and Sean McMahon. They're doing a dual set between those guys. So make sure you get down to that one. It's a nice cheap one, $20, can't lose. And then just promoting album of the week for us is a brand new release from Al Matcott, his debut album. So here it is, Summer's Coming. Great looking album cover, and one you can't miss for sure. And then there's Al out promoting. So we're going to try and catch up with Al Matcott in the next couple of weeks. And then a show we've got coming up tomorrow night, Saint Victoire. That'll be a good one. She's doing some awesome things, so we'll have a chat to her tomorrow. But tonight it's all about Matt Malone. So we're going to have a chat to Matt right now, bring him up, and see what's happening on his little musical journey. Welcome to episode 118, Matt. Welcome.
How you going, Aaron? Thanks for having me.
No problems on a quiet Monday night. Sorry. What else would you be doing normally on a Monday night, mate, other than just relaxing after a weekend?
Usually be getting some reading done or trying to organise my radio program for tomorrow night.
Yep.
So yeah. Mondays are usually a big catch-up day for me after the weekends. Monday's usually really busy for me, so
yep.
I slotted you in, mate.
Beautiful. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
This is one we've been had in the making for a little while, trying to get a date together, and I really appreciate you accommodating me, and we can join forces for a half an hour in amongst this chat, mate, and look forward to finding out a little bit about your journey. Let's kick off with give the radio station a plug, mate. Give us your radio show and when it's on, and how people can jump on and hear it.
So I've been doing my radio show now for over a decade, up to over 500 shows now, and it's every Tuesday from 8 till 10 p.m. on 99.9 FM. You can listen to it online on iHeartRadio, online radio box, all those kind of spots.
Yep.
And interviewed a lot of different people over the years, perhaps not dissimilar to yourself, Aaron. It's been, it's a pain in the ass for me, actually, honestly, going up from Melbourne every week to do it in person, because there's something about it for me. I like to do it actually in the studio live.
Yep.
Rather than dialing it in and doing a pre-record. But yeah, look, I really enjoy it. I get like a free-for-all to play whatever kind of music I want and to kind of talk to whoever I want. I've spoken to a lot of great musicians over the years.
Yeah, nice. What's the title of your show, mate? You got one?
It's called Hell or High Water.
Beautiful. Very.
Hell or High Water radio show, 8 till 10 p.m. every Tuesday evening on 99.9 Voice FM.
There you go. If that's not a great voiceover voice, I'll go he. But one thing I've definitely noticed in your music that I've only kind of recently come across, to be perfectly honest, Matt, I said I was a new fan of yours, which won't be the last time. That's for sure. And it was a great listen, the first listen. Talk about a real nice, bellowy, deep, bassy voice, mate. I love it. Has that always been your singing kind of sweet spot?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm a self-taught singer, as you can probably hear, and and yeah, it's just I think you don't really have a choice what the timbre of your voice is. You know, you kind of just follow where your voice kind of takes you, I guess.
Yep.
But yeah, that's kind of what I am, I guess. Kind of a baritone, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And your first memory of music, mate, where were you? Where'd you grow up? And what was kind of playing in the house or down the street?
So I grew up in Creswick. It's about 10 or 15 minutes out of Ballarat. You've ever been there, Aaron?
I haven't actually. No.
No, okay.
Been to Ballarat plenty of times, but never to Creswick.
Yeah, so Creswick was kind of an outlier of the gold rush kind of era in the 19th century. And a lot of famous kind of luminaries from Creswick, like John Curtin, the great Labor World War II Prime Minister, and the artist Norman Lindsay was from Creswick as well. And so my childhood and where I grew up in a small country town, and it was a pretty, kind of classic Australian working class, blue collar kind of environment and setting. Lots of AFL football, bush, and mostly on the radio for me was, what my old man listened to, which was, AC/DC and Cold Chisel, really, were kind of the staples of my really early youth. But the first music that really, I love Chisel and AC/DC, by the way, but the first music that really hit home for me was I was a very small boy and going out to visit my great-grandfather, on his farm. He was in his 90s at this stage, and he had a kind of an old piano as you walked into his little mining cottage, and above the piano he had two pictures. One was of who I knew was Christ, and the other one was a photograph of a slick, black-haired, slicked young man, very handsome. And I remember saying to my pop, I said to him, I know that that's Christ, but who's the other guy? And he said, oh, that's God too, son. That's Elvis Presley. And so that was kind of one of the first impressions I had of music that I found kind of mysterious or kind of captured my attention. And in my childhood, I used to try and skip school, even in primary school, to watch the midday movie of Elvis Presley. And the first movie of his that really struck me was Jailhouse Rock. There was just something about, when you, what was it, 6 or 7 or something, there was something so electric on that screen in the black and white of this young man singing that particular song that really just kind of, it really was like electric current coming out of the TV into my little body, and it kind of shook me alive. And that was a pretty important moment, I think, for me in retrospect, going on to become, a very big Elvis Presley fan over the years. Do you want me to continue with this kind of musical story?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
And then it was probably in my 8, 9, 10 years old ish around that time, kicking footies around the neighborhood and stuff, going out on bikes out in the bush, terrorizing the native wildlife, as you do as a young man with your other lads. And there was an older brother to a mate of mine that lived down the street. And we used to, as I say, kick the footy around. And he had a cassette deck, and he used to create these mixtapes that he had kind of culled from Triple J airwaves in the early 90s, when Triple J was actually good, because it has turned to shit over the last kind of 10 or 15 years, if I may say that. And there was a lot of great alternative rock and punk and metal and stuff that they were playing at that time. And I remember, you'd hear it on his cassette deck. He'd have, bands like Alice in Chains and, Sonic Youth, the Pixies, the Melvins, Mudhoney, all that kind of Seattle grunge stuff that was going around, that was kind of coming out of these speakers. And it was kind of my first exposure to alternative rock, as it were. And I said to him, can you make me a 2 cassette tapes of like 2 bands that you think that I should listen to? And the 2 cassette tapes he made one was of a band called Nirvana, and the other one was of a band called Metallica. And I remember listening to those tapes exhaustively, and they kind of set me on 2 different kind of paths in my kind of later, as I was just coming into my teenage years. So Nirvana kind of got me heavily into, as I mentioned before, Sonic Youth and stuff, and Meat Puppets, and exploring a lot of kind of the American underground, as it were. And then Metallica kind of set me on the path of kind of more metal and heavy metal and all that kind of thing. And as I went into high school, I kind of gave away more of the alternative rock stuff and became like a full-on metalhead. I was obsessed with Danzig, which I'm still a huge Glenn Danzig fan. Slayer I got into, who are still one of my all-time favorite bands. I absolutely fucking love Slayer. I always will. And Morbid Angel and these types of bands. But the scene that really got it for me, which was kind of coming out of the mid-90s into the late 90s, was the Norwegian black metal movement. I really identified with the sound and the aesthetic and the beauty and the poetry and the mythology of Norwegian black metal, particularly bands like Dark Throne, Emperor, Bertram, of which I'm still a big fan of Bertram's music. I know he's very controversial in his politics, but musically for me, he'll always be a kind of a go back to kind of artist. And Mayhem, I got really into Mayhem a lot. But as I kind of went through that mid-teen period, I went into like 16, 17, 18, and I was always watching Rage on late night TV on a Saturday night, being guest program. I watched that pretty much from, age 8 right through to my early 20s. Because growing up in a place like Creswick, it's like there really wasn't many people around that were into alternative culture or music or anything kind of interesting. I felt very isolated. I felt like a real outsider in my childhood, in my teen years. And Rage was kind of like this portal into another kind of dimension. On a Saturday night, you could go into this other space where you could escape into these playlists by these amazing guest programmers. And one night, Thurston Moore from Sonic Youth was on there, and he played a track from an Australian artist. This particular video was up against a white wall, kind of grainy. And once again, he had kind of slicked black hair too, kind of longer though. And he had these great lyrics that really, it was once again one of those Elvis Presley moments for me. It was like that electrical current coming through the TV screen into my teen body. And he's saying, I ain't down here for your money. I ain't down here for your love. I'm down here for your soul. And that really struck it hard for me. And that was Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, of course. And then Nick Cave became like a gateway drug into artists like Leonard Cohen, Johnny Cash, Tom Waits, Bob Dylan, these types of artists, and also into kind of literature that I got really into at the time, like Dostoevsky and, and reading the Bible and all this types of stuff that I got into at that particular time. And it also led to getting into the Doors and stuff in my early 20s. And Jim Morrison had a huge impact on me for quite a number of years as well. But I think the other thing I really got out of Nick too was that it really introduced me to the Australian artists that have had such a huge impact on me, like Roland Howard, The Birthday Party, Kim Salmon and the Surrealists, The Beasts of Bourbon, Tex Perkins, Don Walker, Chrissy Amphlett, all of these great Australian artists that I've even had the pleasure of sharing the stage with which for me as just a country boy, as it were, has been kind of a dream come true over the years.
Yeah, not bad from a local little kid, trying to feel his way out of Creswick.
That's right.
What a great journey after all, and incredible amount of influences from such diverse music categories. So talk about well versed, mate, in the music scene and influenced. So where it all comes together to become this Matt Malone and the Holy Spirits. It's a pretty deep name. It's really cool, man. I really like the whole feel of kind of what you got going on at the moment. What was the first instrument for you picked up? Was it the guitar, and did it stay that way always?
No, the first instrument, I wanted to play guitar when I got into high school, but we weren't allowed to play guitars because rock and roll and stuff wasn't really encouraged as a musical path at high school. It was more you had to be in a jazz band or a brass band or a classical kind of ensemble. And I love jazz. I love Coltrane and Leonard Cohen, and I love classical music a great deal. I'm a huge fan of Maria Callas, for example, the opera singer. She's one of my favorite singers of all time. But, as a young man, I really wanted to play metal and punk rock, and the only instrument that I was allowed to play that was close to that was the bass guitar. So I played bass all the way through my teens in a variety of bands. There was one band I played in, we kind of sounded a bit like the Smashing Pumpkins mixed with like Sonic Youth and the Melvins kind of style.
What was that? What was the name of that band?
It was first called Empathy.
Yeah.
I actually named it after Kurt Cobain's suicide note. At the end of his suicide note, it says peace, love, empathy, Kurt Cobain. And then that's kind of his last. And I thought empathy is a cool name. This is like 13, 14-year-old kid, and I was in another band with a bunch of metalheads, and we used to play Metallica, Slayer, Misfits, Danzig, that kind of stuff. And I just played bass. And my favorite bass players at the time were Cliff Burton of Metallica. So I had like a Big Muff pedal and I had a wah-wah pedal. And I used to kind of go crazy on that and play heaps of notes and go mental. And I loved Geezer Butler too from Black Sabbath. So my bass style at the time was really influenced by those guys. And then I went on to playing guitar in kind of my early 20s, just out of a necessity for the fact that, I felt like I wanted to write songs or maybe perform at some stage. And I felt like guitar was a better, more utilitarian instrument to be able to do that with. But completely self-taught. I've never been taught a chord or a note or how to play anything. How I learned how to play guitar was, was from listening to Johnny Cash records and learning Johnny Cash songs. That was how I learnt chords and how to kind of play guitar. And then I learnt some riffs and a general kind of way to feel through the guitar through trying to emulate John Lee Hooker and his kind of blues, kind of really dirgy kind of style. And the other one that I learnt a lot from guitar from was Lou Reed, and I used to sit with the kind of bootleg Velvet Underground records, and I used to jam along with my amp. So I'd have the Velvet Underground on like maximum volume. Then I'd have my amp plugged in, and I would jam along with the Velvet Underground and play kind of like noise guitar with trying to copy Lou Reed. So they were kind of the three. Cash, John Lee Hooker, and Lou Reed were kind of the three people that taught me how to play guitar, I guess.
Yeah, well, not bad influences to surround yourselves with three of arguably some of the best there for sure, and unique styles in themselves. So, all right, before we go on and talk about the album for the term of my natural life, the clip as well, we're gonna get you to play something, mate, live.
Okay. Is there any song that is a favorite of yours from the record, Aaron?
No, I'm going to throw it back to you, mate, to surprise me.
All right. I think this is one that audience members have enjoyed over the shows we've done this year. It's the second track on the album, and it was really kind of its structure and its kind of message or its melody was influenced by my love for Mel Haggard and Tammy Wynette. And there's a lot of country songs out there that are about breakups, obviously. And most of the time breakups are a really bad thing. But in my case and in my personal life, it's been a fucking good thing to break up with some people. And sometimes it's even the best day of your life. So this is called The Best Day of My Life. When I look back on us, well, I see we were doomed from the start. 'Cause you lived only for love, and I, like Romeo, I was crossed with the stars. Well, I wish that I never met you. Oh, we were sooner to part. 'Cause all of the things you did, baby, they left me, well, I'm wounded and scarred. Because the day you left, it was the best day of my life. Well, the door, it slammed, and forever we said our goodbye. Well, now I am the best in my life. Now I no longer hate you, 'cause I don't care for your lies. 'Cause I've only got one life now, babe, and I've wasted my own precious time. Because the day you left, it was the best day of my life. Well, the door, it slammed, and forever we said our goodbye. Well, the day you left, it was the best day of my life. Well, the door, it slammed, and forever we said our goodbye. Now I am, well, I'm the best in my life. Yes, now I am the best in my life, babe. Well, I'm living the best years of my life.
Yeah, well done, man. That's cool.
Cheers.
Very nice. Been a bit of an outpouring of emotion and happiness, I guess, in the end. We can't often get to talk about the best time and best day of your life. That's for sure. So, what was it for you, mate? Relationship breakup, someone, or smashing out some friends that were in the right, not part of your life anymore? How did that song come together?
That song's about an ex-girlfriend, 2 ex-girlfriends I had. I kind of put them into one person, and then that song kind of came out of it. But yeah, it's just trying to be honest about my thoughts and feelings about those particular individuals. I think sometimes in music in general, or even in life in general, I think a lot of times we're not very honest with ourselves or with other people about what our genuine feelings are, or we're almost not privy, or we can't express that. And in that song, it's seeing the complicated kind of nature of those relationships, that there was some good there, but there's also good in parting ways as well. And I think for me, my favorite lyric in that one is, I no longer hate you. I don't care for your lies. I think I really love that. The fact that he's admitting that he actually did hate them, though. Because I think so often we won't admit that to ourselves, that we hate anything.
Hate's pretty strong. My mother always said, "You don't hate anything." Hate's a very strong word, But yeah, I can tell you plenty of things I hated growing up. So you do change your tune a little bit, but you're right. I don't think we often confront some of those situations wholeheartedly, and actually, you really do need to slash through that discussion and make a firm decision, not sit on the fence anymore. It's not 40%, 50% right. It's got to go. Clean start, effectively, a clean break. You've gone on to bigger and better things since. I'm not sure how long ago that was, but that's irrelevant. It's kind of shown us a lesson for sure.
Yeah. I think you always learn from the people in your life, that sometimes even people that you meet, even momentarily, you can learn so much from. I think people who are unbelievably generous without even perhaps realizing it sometimes. And I think with your beloved or someone that you've loved in your life, the generosity of the knowledge and the ability to understand is so profound that I think it always will be a part of you on some level. I think when you love someone truly, I think there's always a part of you that goes with them as a gift. And I think that's part of the tragedy of love and romance as well, is that I think when that person turns out to be a pretty horrible kind of person in some way, I think that's where a lot of the sadness can come from as well. You know, you spend so much time with someone, you're so intimate with someone, they know so much about you, and yet they treat you so poorly when things don't go their way. You know,
Yeah,
I think it's very human. I think we've all experienced that.
absolutely. And I'm not sure that old wound ever really totally heals, right? As you said, a little bit of your kind of gift feels like it's gets cut off, probably in a good way, bad way potentially. But it never ever, that scar kind of still sits there, and whether you use it positively in the end to push you forward and strive for better things, I guess, as a person. But you've really got to grow as a person, don't you? It's not easy, that's for sure. This life journey that we're all on.
No, absolutely. And I think um, it's really like I find it really interesting that the people that don't seem to grow or mature, like I don't think it's an age thing either. Like in my life, I've met 21, 22-year-olds that have a lot more maturity than some 50-year-olds. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I was watching an interview today with a Russian author called Solzhenitsyn. Are you familiar with him?
No, I'm not. No.
He was a Soviet prisoner in the Gulag under Joseph Stalin after the Russian Revolution, and he wrote a series of books about his experience in the Gulag. And I was watching there's a 4 hour kind of conversation with him on YouTube, and I was watching some of that this afternoon. And he got asked by the interviewer. He said, "Do you think you have an old soul or a young soul?" And Solzhenitsyn kind of looks off in the distance, and he's really seriously contemplating it. And he says, "Oh, I'm not sure that I can answer that question. I'm not sure if I have an old or a young soul, but I know I have a soul." So I think for us to even identify how old or young we are in our maturity or not in regards to our physical bodies, I think that's kind of irrelevant. I've copped that a lot in my life because I'm not really that old in my body, especially when I was in my 20s and stuff. But through reading and kind of some of the experiences that I've been exposed to, I guess I've had this kind of, there's been a knowledge there or something that I've been able to impart and help people with in some kind of capacity, you know. And I felt like that's part of the calling in my life that I've noticed in my journey, Aaron.
Yeah, it's mate, you're definitely an experienced man, and you put yourself out there to find out a hell of a lot more about life in general, and you've done that through not only through music, but you've done it through so much else in readings and finding out what's out there. And not too many people, honestly, pick up the Bible and have an actual read. They happen to listen to it and hear it, but not necessarily actually flick the pages and actually read the content for themselves. So yeah, that's an interesting one. Is that tell us a little bit about Matt Malone and the Holy Spirits, and the name and where that kind of first saw light?
The Holy Spirit, you mean?
Yeah.
So for this particular record, I wanted to put together more of an ensemble. Prior to that, I've always kind of just done solo stuff, and I've kind of put together a band, maybe just for a tour or something. But for this particular record, I really wanted to bring a lot more individual voices into the fray, not just my voice. I wanted to have kind of an ensemble of musicians that I really respected on board to perform their parts on the record. And it kind of, the name came out of I think my heavy influence from religion and from the Bible and all that kind of stuff. It was interesting. I was talking to a Catholic about it a while ago, and they didn't like the name because, you know, in the Trinity, there's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and the Spirit's just singular. And the fact that I pluralized it, they weren't happy about it. But for me, it's kind of it's kind of a signpost to something that hopefully maybe more people will investigate. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Because the musical world to me is a very secular kind of environment, and I don't think a lot of musicians or individuals in this particular environment are very open to spiritual matters. You know what I mean? Which is extremely important to me, Aaron.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds definitely sounds like it's been one of your influences and big influences, not just from music, but there's obviously, you know, all part of a third being, I guess you'd say, outside of music to come and influence you. So we're going to talk. I'm going to play a little bit about for the term of My Natural Life, which is the first track you've released with a clip. This is a great clip, so I just want to play a bit of this and then we'll talk about it.
Fantastic.
Well, I was born and raised my mother's only son, and I was condemned for a crime I never done, 'cause I was poor and I was so alone, and I was not made equal under the Lord. Well, I am forced to labor out in the devil's sun, and I do pray to the crucified one, 'cause I know I will never escape, and I am damned, well, to the darkness of my fate, that I am here for the term of my natural life. Well, that I am here for the term of my natural life. Well, that I am here for the term of my natural life. Well, that I am here for the term of my natural life.
Well, there you go. And I'm going to urge you to jump on YouTube and have a look for Matt Malone and the Holy Spirits, and make sure you check out the rest of that clip because it's a ripper, mate. Well done, and congratulations on the song and the album, firstly, but also putting together that great clip. It's how important is a clip for you to kind of capture the feel and the moment of the album?
For this record, it was really important for me to do a video clip, and one that I was happy with. And it's been really handy too. I mean, the image behind you and the front cover, all the images for the record and the vinyl release. Yep, that image too. The single covers as well for Natural Life and The Stranger. They've all come from the video clip.
Yeah.
So it's all kind of tied together really well. That's the album cover. Yep, and that's been a real bonus for me. That it's been able to be that visually rich. That's drawn all the images for the record, and it's kind of become like a cohesive core imagery-wise for everything. The video clip as a concept obviously is inspired by the song, which is inspired by the book by Marcus Clarke from the 19th century. Have you read the book, Aaron?
No, I haven't, but you've intrigued me to go and have a read now.
It's Marcus Clarke was a British journalist. He came over during the convict era here in Australia, and he was hired by British newspapers to write about the penal colonies, particularly in Tasmania and in New South Wales, and kind of report back to England about what was kind of going on there, conditions-wise, stories from the prisoners and stuff. And he kind of put together this book, Full of Term, of his natural life that tells the story of a young man called Rufus Dawes, who in England gets convicted of a crime that he didn't commit and gets sent to the penal colonies in Australia and gets kind of dealt with very harshly by the authorities here, and goes through a lot of suffering and trials and etc. To the tragic conclusion of the text. And I read that during the COVID lockdown, and kind of inspired that song, and I could really relate to the character Rufus Dawes being kind of convicted of a crime that you hadn't actually done. And so I put the song together, and during the COVID era, I moved back to Ballarat from Melbourne. I live in Preston now, and I was living in Preston then. I went back to Ballarat and stayed with my family and a friend, and I was just going for long walks through nature and enjoying the fact that I didn't have the extremity of the lockdowns that were happening down here in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And which I assume you would know very well, Aaron.
Yeah. Funnily enough, that's how this little podcast came together, literally from those kind of conversations. And then try to spread it a little bit wider, because inside that 1 hour a day wasn't cutting it as far as who you could go for a walk with within your 1K or 2K radius. It was just madness. But congratulations to you being able to get out, mate, to be honest, and experience. You'd seen both sides of it, I guess, but definitely a better place for your mental health. That was for sure, being outside metropolitan Melbourne.
Oh, for sure. And it gave me the opportunity to kind of location scout for some of these shots in the clip, because all these shots were around Ballarat. So in the start there, that's a beautiful waterfall in Ballarat called Lal Falls. We went there and we did some filming there, and we did some filming at an old abandoned train station up around that area as well. And also at the end, which you didn't play, there's some filming in the basement of a abandoned old slaughterhouse, and it was still, you could kind of still had a dank kind of smell in there. It was kind of all the flooring had kind of dissipated in different spots. There's bits of planks and wood everywhere, lots of beautiful shadows and whatever. So we filmed the end of the clip in there, which was really pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with the imagery at the end of the clip in particular. But in regards to the kind of influences for the video, I've always loved old films from the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s in particular. Like, I love all those old actresses, like Catherine Deneuve and Sophia Loren, and then prior to that, of course, Lauren Bacall and Munro and Rita Hayworth. I love all those, and I love all those old films and stuff. So I definitely wanted to do it in black and white, and I wanted to draw on. So like that train station scene is influenced by a video clip by the singing brakeman, who was one of the first country singers in American music history, called Jimmy Rogers. If you jump online to YouTube and you write in Jimmy Rogers waiting for a train, you'll see it'll come up and it'll kind of be a very similar shot to exactly what we put in the clip. I was very adamant about having that as a little signpost to that, because I love Jimmy Rogers so much.
Yep.
So there was a lot of these types of things that went into the clip, and I was really lucky to work with a great cinematographer called John Flores, and he's got a beautiful eye, and he has a great technical kind of ability. But I kind of wrote up the screenplay and scouted out the locations. I came up with the shot sheet for the day. It was all filmed in one day.
Great effort.
Put it all together. He edited it, John, first. I hope you won't mind me saying John, but I wasn't happy with the first edit at all. And I went in there and I edited it basically myself. And I think I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I did the good part to shoot it. It's not always someone's got to have their take on it, and you kind of very much were, because you planned the shots. I dare say you had a very unique way of how you thought it was going to come together, and that's not always done by someone else. Sometimes it needs the original, the original person who come up with it to then really to kind of direct it almost. So well done to everyone involved in this shoot. I think it's like you said, it captured so much and gave you so much content. I mean, there's endless kind of content and stills and all sorts of things. So I really look forward to having a look through the rest of it. I've seen shots of the rest of the album, but yeah, it's really cool. So it's a little it's a 7-track album. There's plenty of goodness in it. I believe The Stranger is one of the big hits, or that people do like. So there was a comment just a little before from Peter Thomas saying Stranger is his pick off the album. So there you go.
Hey, Pete.
Always.
Thanks for your support, Pete. Really appreciate it, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. We look forward to spreading the voice for you, Matt, as much as we can. If ever you've got anything coming up, please feel free to have a chat. But I just wanted to cover off kind of your songwriting process for you. How do you kind of go about it, especially in this particular album? Has that been any different to what you've done before, or it's kind of the same method you roll?
So in my when I first started writing songs, it was really really hard. It was really tough. The idea of trying to put words and music together just seemed insurmountable. I'm sure a lot of songwriters when they start out perhaps feel the same. But over the years, it's like I think you work out kind of a method or a way to go about it, and I think it's very individual and unique to every songwriter. I'm sure being on this program, Aaron, you've probably asked that question to quite a few people, and everyone's kind of got a bit of a different answer. But I think for me, from my first record, 6, that came out in 2016, through to Him Under Her, H, and now this record, For the Term of My Natural Life, there has been some pretty clear threads in regards to the methodology of how I write songs. And it really comes from a very intuitive, kind of inspired space. It's not, I'm not someone who's a laborer over songs much. I think there's 2 schools to songwriting in my view. There's the Leonard Cohen school, which is very kind of, you labor on it for a couple of years and you eventually put something out that's very perfect and well put together. I'm not like that at all. And then there's the other school, which is the more Bob Dylan school, which is just you kind of hammer it all together in like 20 minutes or half an hour or so. And then you just kind of put it out there and just have this belief that in that moment or in the process that something beautiful or profound or worthwhile's kind of come out of it. And I think that's how I kind of write songs is I might have an idea somewhere looming in my subconscious mind, like For the Term of My Natural Life, there's like reading the book or something, there was something about the story that kind of hung in my mind. Talking about The Stranger, that's once again about kind of a doomed, failed relationship. And this idea and that particular song of in my experience, it's talking once again about intimacy and romance and relationships. You know, you're with someone for a lengthy period of time, and without you even perhaps knowing or otherwise, you're kind of blindsided. You wake up one day and the person that's laying next to you seems as if it's someone that you don't even know anymore. Like there's a coldness there, there's a strangeness there. And once they, you know, in that song, there's this, it kind of plays out in this room, this drama, you know. Maybe I should play it for you. But that song was just a very inspired song. It came about in about 10, 15, 20 minutes. And all the songs I've written for this record have come together in probably less than half an hour. Even a track like Judgment Day, which is a 7-minute song that's very epic, that goes through various epochs in our history, and has a very dense kind of poetic structure. I mean, I wrote that in basically half an hour, and it's just kind of coming up with a chord progression to me that sounds good, that kind of intuitively seems to lock something in my imagination, and then a story will just kind of flow out from that, you know.
Yeah, nice, very nice. And the recording process for you, how long was the recording of this particular album, and over, you know, where did was it actually recorded?
The recording of this record was a pain in the ass, Aaron, to be honest. So
timing or just how it came together?
Oh, it was just took forever. It was so I kind of wrote the record. It didn't take me that long to write it, you know, as I'm saying. But the recording process, it was like we had a failed attempt at doing a separate tracking kind of thing of the vocal and the guitar, and then trying to overdub everything else. And I just don't really work like that. I like to do as much of it live as possible, and then only do overdubs if I have to, which means that the musicians that I'm playing with generally have to be pretty well rehearsed as an ensemble. Yeah. For me, there's a certain energy that comes from a more live sounding record that I love, like like I love the Sun Studio records with Cash and Elvis and Roy Orbison and Howlin' Wolf and Jerry Lee Lewis and all these guys. I mean, in the Sun Studio with Sam Phillips, a lot of the time they were recording around 1 or 2 microphones, and it was just musicians coming together, playing, and then you just hit record, and then you cut the tape, you do a mix, and then it's done. I like that kind of faster, just capturing a moment kind of approach. And the overdubbing and the separation between the guitar and the vocal, it just didn't work for me at all. The vocal sounded dead and the guitar playing sounded dead. It wasn't working. So we had a second attempt. This was all with my long time producer, Adam Casey at True Vine Recording Studios, who I've recorded with from 6 to this record. And we ended up live tracking the vocal and the guitar. So that's all live. There's no vocal overdubs or nothing. That's completely live. Yep. And the double bass and the electric guitar. So that was all kind of done live together. And then we had to overdub the drums afterwards and the violin and the pedal steel and stuff. And it was a long, protracted, painful birth, Aaron, because of the COVID pandemic and the COVID lockdown. So we get in and record for a couple of days, and then there would be a lockdown for 3 months. And then we'd have to go back in and try and, record another part, and then it would be cancelled. And then we'd have to wait another few weeks. And it was just this back and forth. And it really was a bit of a nightmare for me personally. It really, I found it extremely difficult because when a recording for me is kind of still in the water, there's a great quote from William Blake where he says, stagnant water breeds reptiles of the mind. And there's something about it that kind of the water starts to poison. And with recording, I think that's what happens too, at least in my opinion. So it was a really tough record to put together. So I'm really looking forward to, in the new year, doing some recording, Aaron, that's going to be a lot easier.
Nice.
And a lot
Well,
more.
I'm kind of sensing part of your magic approach really is that you enjoy is that live album or that live setting. So who knows? Potential long live album from a venue potentially. Who knows?
Well,
Or an
I am
intimate
going to, I've done that. I recorded so I've done a whole bunch of shows this year, and I recorded, I've recorded a couple of shows. My bass player, Tony, recorded them, and I was listening to some of them back today, and we are going to put out a live record next year. It's going to be Matt Malone, the Holy Spirit's live at the Merry Creek Tavern.
Yeah, awesome.
And it'll probably be 8 or 9 songs. And yeah, it's sounding very live, very rough and rowdy, pretty intense. Anyone that's come to see us live can attest to the fact that it's a pretty intense kind of live show. I like to get in people's faces as much as possible. My backing singer on the weekend, we played in Belgrave, and she said to me, "Matt, you really were a man possessed tonight. Like you were like on another level of kind of taking in the Holy Spirit, as it were, Aaron, perhaps." The live performance for me is so important. I really enjoy it so much. It's a real time for me to exercise my demons, as it were, and to share some of that energy with the audience.
Yeah. I see from one of your influences or who you've been kind of partially liked to is African-American gospel preacher, such as Blind Willie Johnson. Tell us a little bit about that kind of feel and influence. Maybe, that kind of really evoked that emotion of what they go through in that kind of gospel singing and how they kind of look possessed in respect of how it comes out and really just grips your body. And that's something that's always interested me. That to me, that's kind of how I feel at some gigs, to be perfectly honest. I feel like I've been transported and somewhat kind of possessed for the moment. A lot of the times by guitar. Hendrix was a massive influence for me, and I just he was someone for me that I just thought, wow, this guy's been so gifted here with an incredible talent. But just tell us a little bit about that part of the influence for you.
I love gospel music a great deal, and I love early blues music. I love Willie Dixon, John Lee Hooker, Howlin' Wolf, all those guys. They've kind of changed my musical DNA, and I listen to so much blues and gospel music. It's it's crazy how much I listen to, and I love Mahalia Jackson. She's one of my favorite singers ever. And the whole black gospel movement that came out of the late 19th century and right up to kind of Martin Luther King Jr. And the civil rights protest movement. There's just so much beauty there that's come out of suffering and out of enslavement and out of degradation of the human spirit and the human soul. Yet there's such a optimism and hope and beauty that these beautiful people bring forth, and I just find it so inspiring. And it really helps to put things in perspective for me about my own life and some of the horrible things that I've been through, perhaps, But Blind Willie Johnson, he's one of my all-time favorite songwriters and performers ever. For listeners that don't know who Blind Willie Johnson was, he was around in the 20s and 30s, and he was obviously blind. His mother, I believe, threw hot water in his eyes, or at least that's kind of the mythology about it, that his mother and father were having like a domestic kind of fight, and he was trying to protect his mother, and he got boiling water thrown in his eyes. At least that's what kind of one of the stories. Anyway, there's a lot of stories about it. And he used to sing on street corners with his wife, songs like John the Revelator, Dark Was the Night, Cold Was the Ground, which is one of my all-time favorite songs. It's kind of an instrumental piece, and he kind of does this beautiful singing, and it's been used in a lot of films over the years. And it's him imagining himself standing before the foot of the crucifixion, and this is what he would sing. as Christ is kind of dying and letting go of his spirit to the Father. And I find it deeply, deeply moving. And to me, it's the pinnacle of what you can really achieve, I think, as a musician. Because I think for me, music is truly a spiritual and religious experience and art form.
Yep.
And, for me on stage, like I was saying before, it is about being completely taken over by the energy and the spirit of the music. And I think for me, going back to my childhood, I mean, growing up in Creswick, I mean, I used to go to mass every Sunday. I was brought up an Irish Catholic, and that's a huge part of my story, and the idea of being a preacher, for me, that was the first thing I wanted to be when I was a kid. I wanted to be a priest when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And I think that's always going to be a part of who I am as a person and how I go about my business. I try really hard in my life to live out the gospel in the best way that I can, and in the very human and imperfect way that I can. I fail every day in every kind of way possible. But, you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you start a new day, and you try and realign yourself to that compass, to that star, Yep. And there was a period of time before, during the pandemic, where I was thinking about giving up music entirely and going down perhaps a more spiritual path in my life. But I realized that music for me, I do have a kind of a gift for it and a calling for it. And that through music, you can actually reach people spiritually in a very profound and beautiful way. And in a way, I think that's perhaps a bit more open to the modern consciousness, people going to a pub or a bar and you talking about God and redemption and sin and judgment and forgiveness and grace. I think every human person needs that in their life in one way or another, Aaron.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, definitely some of the most modern versions of church or gatherings now always include live music. So there's no doubt, mate, you've been blessed with something as a musical journey. You said you're self-taught, and I think that's even kind of more special and raw and real that it is. You're right, it's not perfect, but what is? What's perfection these days? If you're happy with it and you're happy with the message, and that's what you can get out, mate, it's going to come out and deliver like that. And that's, you're right. You mentioned, I'm really looking forward to one of your gigs into the future, coming out and having a look at seeing you perform live. Just tell us a little bit quickly about, just before we finish, on the rest of your band and how you've been able to grab some of these great musicians to play along with you.
So on the record, you've got the picture up here of so I've got kind of two bands on the record. I had there's a little bit of me kind of getting a bit possessed.
Great shot. Yeah, I love that shot.
So on the record, it's Simon Edwards on the drums and Adam Casey on bass, Katie Walsh on backing vocals, and Ash Jones on violin and electric guitar by Henry Hugo. As we went into the live band, some of the personnel changed. Henry Hugo remained on the electric guitar and Ash Jones remained on the violin. And I've been playing with Ash now quite a lot, doing some duo shows over the last couple of years. Ash is a very beautiful soul, gentle-hearted, very compassionate person who really is kind of an unsung legend of the Melbourne underground scene in my view. And I think anyone that knows him would probably say the same thing. Henry Hugo is an Argentinian fella who lived in Europe for a number of years, has his own band Henry Hugo and the Kindred Souls. And he's been around the traps for a long time, played with a lot of different people like Hugo Race and stuff over the years. And he brings, I think Ash brings like a gypsy classical kind of vibe to his violin playing into the ensemble.
Yep.
It's almost got like a gypsy meets Warren Ellis kind of vibe to it. And Henry Hugo brings a more of a like a post-punk kind of Ennio Morricone-ish. It's like Roland Howard meets Ennio Morricone kind of sound to the ensemble, which I really love. Maggie Williams is such a beautiful singer. I'm really blessed to have her backing me up. I've always loved the early Leonard Cohen records and the lovely ladies that he's had sing with him over the years to complement his very human voice. Perhaps not dissimilar to mine in some respects, a very imperfect human voice. But when you've got some angels singing with you, it elevates your humanity. So I'm very blessed to have her in the ensemble. Yep. Ian Chaplin, he's actually kind of a bit of a jazz legend from the 90s. He was a saxophonist for a number of years and went on to great critical acclaim. And his first instrument was drums, and he's Maggie's partner. And she kind of just said to him, well, you know, Matt's looking for a drummer. Would you be interested? And he's jumped on board, and he brings a real kind of jazz touch to some of the drumming, which has been great. And Anthony Cornish on the bass, who has really become a very good friend of mine over the last couple of years. He's a great recording engineer, producer. He's played in a lot of different bands over the years with Eden and Icon and a bunch of kind of more goth, post-punk kind of bands over the years. And we go to all the Melbourne Demons games together because he's a rabid Demon supporter like myself. So me and him and his son, we're members, and we go to the game together when the season's on. Yep. So we've become really good mates, and I feel very blessed to play with some really great musicians, mate. It makes my job a lot easier.
Absolutely. Well, there's no doubt there was a spirit dragging us forward, mate, and it's the one that seems to be from hell with the demons. So there we go, mate. I'm a fellow demon as well.
Oh,
so
are you?
I've copped plenty of ribbing along this process. Yeah, and we got to do many shows in the lead up to 2021. So it was an exciting time. Not so luckily in the last couple of years, but we got there. So I think we're not far away again, but we'll see. Hey, so we might even see you at a Demons game.
Yeah. Are you a member, mate?
Yeah. So look forward to getting along. I was an MCC member for years and kind of gave it up eventually. And music kind of gripped me and took most of my Saturdays and Saturday nights back again. So really enjoying being part of both the music scene and obviously going through a bit of a glory period or a better period with the Melbourne Footy Club, that's for sure, than we all suffered.
Hopefully, mate. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Some of the recent stuff that's been coming out, and I don't know, rumours and whatever. Hopefully, we're going to keep it going, rolling for a couple of years. But two straight sets in the finals, mate. It was pretty disappointing after a granny, but yeah.
Absolutely.
We are long suffering demons, my friend.
Hopefully we can turn that around, but the girls got it done, and sadly the girls just got absolutely walloped on the weekend, so hopefully they can turn it around as well.
Were you there?
No, I wasn't, but saw the results, sadly.
Yeah, I was there. That's why I've got so sunburned, is because I was sitting in the sun at Princess Park. I was watching the game with Tony, actually, my bass and producer. So, yeah.
Right.
No, it was a pretty disappointing game, mate.
Absolutely. Call comes down to a do or die now against Geelong, I believe, girls. So, all right, we're going to finish off with the last question, Matt, that we kind of asked most of us or guests, and it's the standard dinner party question. You're having a dinner party. It's a table for 6. You obviously take up one of the seats. These people can be living or dead, for inspirations or friends, whatever you like them to be, but I need 5 more. You can have anyone at this table. Who would they be?
Oh, okay.
That's a tough one, and we never put these questions in front of artists. We just let them kind of see who's going to grip them or grab them at this any one moment. It can be anyone that's ever existed.
Okay. I'd like to have. Wow, so many people come to mind. I'd like to have Judas Iscariot.
Yeah, right.
I think he'd be interesting to talk to.
Yeah.
I'd like to have Saint Therese of Lisieux.
Yeah.
I'd like to have Maria Callas.
Two seats left.
Two seats left. Maybe Jim Steins.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the greatest in many aspects.
One more. Oh, look, maybe Johnny Cash. I think I'd like to meet John. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yep.
Or Caravaggio. I'd love to have Caravaggio too.
Right. Oh, we'll put them both. We'll bring them both. There you go. We've rounded it up. We'll put an extra seat in for you, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Look, thanks. We could talk for another hour easily, Matt. It's been fantastic to connect to you. And I didn't know, mate, you're a fellow demon, so that makes it even more special. Given your name with the Holy Spirits, quite a contrasting view, no doubt. But with every good comes a little bit of evil, for sure. So hopefully the demons can get it done in 24. But where can anyone catch you playing anywhere before the new year, or just shows into the new year now?
No, played my last show on the weekend actually in Belgrave.
Yep.
Done a lot of shows this year.
Yep.
Played all around the state. But yeah, I don't have anything booked yet. I'm going to do some recording over the next couple of months.
Nice.
Get this live album out that I was talking about, the Merry Creek Tavern, and move into next year and do some shows next year. So just keep yourself posted if you want to check it out. It's facebook.com/Matt Malone and the Holy Spirits, or jump on Instagram and follow us on there, Matt Malone and the Holy Spirits.
Yep.
And if you want to check out my radio program, Hello High Water radio show, every Tuesday from 8 till 10 p.m. You can listen online anywhere in the country or the world. A lot of people listening from Melbourne. So tune in on Tuesday nights. And I just want to thank you again, Aaron, for your generosity and all the time you put into this program, because I know it takes a lot of time. Just culling these images that you've brought up, just putting the image behind you, just reading about the person, listening to the record, all the things that you do. You're doing a great service to the musical community, giving the opportunity for artists to speak. So thank you so much for your help and your generosity and your beauty, Aaron. Thank you.
Cheers, Matt. Really appreciate those kind words, mate. Look forward to seeing you at a gig soon. And most importantly, someone just put up or Peter before, any chance of Sydney being on the agenda? Can you bring this little tour into state for next year?
I'd love to go to Sydney. I just don't know where to play, mate. Like every time I've played in Sydney, I've had a bad experience. It's different to Melbourne. It's like they've got like a different policy about kind of pay to play. I don't know. Like if they give me a good venue, and the pay's good, acceptable at least.
Yeah.
I would bring the band up there. But yeah, it's just a financial thing, really.
Yeah.
And I don't know who the fuck's going to turn up aside from Peter.
Well, Peter, we're putting it back to you, Peter. If you can organise a good, nice room with 100 of your best friends, mate, Matt will definitely bring the band up. You find the venue, you find the people, book it out, mate, and Matt's there. Put it that way. So there you go.
No, the live shows, I've been getting such good responses. It's been amazing. Like people coming to shows and really overwhelmed. People saying, you guys are one of the best live bands in Melbourne. You guys should be playing the Forum. You guys should be bigger than what you are. Just phenomenal performances. You know, I'm overwhelmed. Yep. It's like country meets heavy metal. It's so intense. Like, I've heard so many great responses from people. There's been no lukewarm responses. Everyone's been really it's been intense, which is good.
Yep. We're going to put in the comments a few comments from the press in general, some great quotes there. So we're going to leave it to those comments to leave some of their powerful words in amongst what you've been able to reviews and all sorts of things, not only on the album, but on part of your shows as well. So feel free to touch base with us again early in the new year. We'd love to have a chat to you again, Matt, on anything you talk about. So look forward to having a chat.
I'd love to. Maybe we could. I'll come on sometime. We'll have a chat about the demon season halfway through or something.
Absolutely. We'll talk how we're going pre-season. I can always have a fellow. This show I do normally come football season. We have 3 or 4 other guys, and they're all mad bombers. So we've got to try and straighten up the ledger a little bit. But one of our good friends, Dave Cosma, is an absolute mad Elvis Presley fan, who just recorded a bit of album he plays in the Sun Rising group as well. And they also have he's just done a release at Sun Records, a recording. So that's going to be an exciting chat. So we might even bring you in for that little chat about Elvis early in the new year.
That sounds great, mate. Happy.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Matt. You've been
go Demons, mate.
Absolutely. You've been awesome on episode 118 of So What's Been Happening. I'd like to personally thank all of these amazing guests that I list up there now that have joined us on this show, and look forward to many more. So until then, till tomorrow night, actually, we come back on with Saint Victoire. We'll look forward to having that chat tomorrow. So there you go. Over and out. Have a good one. See you soon.
Cheers.
Thanks, mate.